Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Confirm if you can hear me. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, JG.
Good morning, Leslie. We can hear you.
Great. I was just checking my mic if it's working. I think we are almost there in terms of time. Let me just confirming if Maranga, you'll be projecting the slides as we proceed with the presentations. Rabach, morning.
Yes, morning, Leslie.
Morning. Rabach, please confirm if the slides will be projected from the midriff to urinate. I think it's Maranga. Please confirm.
Yes, I think he's ready.
Great. Oh, great. Good morning, others. I'm seeing quite a good number of people are joining. Good morning, Leonard.
Yeah, morning. I'm here and I'm listening.
Great. I think from the research team, we're just missing Pauline and Eunice. Just for us to check whether we are connected. Yeah, I think Pauline is joining. I've not heard from Eunice yet. But the way we had structured the program, Leonard, is that we'll start with welcome introductions and registration, and this will be done by Moses. And then Leonard setting the agenda as well as a bit about midriff. Then opening remarks, depending on the time of introduction and registration, who will be in the room. So we can be checking out the chat in terms of people introduce themselves. And then now we'll go into the presentation, which will be done by Eunice, myself, and Elizabeth. And then we'll do the plenary Q&A session, whereby participants will get an opportunity to ask questions. And then next steps and way forward also by Pauline and Elizabeth in terms of now what next. And then finally, if we get partners like Charlotte or any other stakeholders joining, then they can be invited to give closing remarks. So we are still, maybe also Maranga, you can give us a brief in terms of how many people are we expecting or have registered. And then the overall moderation will be done by Moses, welcoming each for each part of the program, handing over the mic and things like that. Yeah, so I think that's how we have structured today to look like, the webinar to look like. Yeah, looking forward to having a great conversation.
Hello.
Hi, Eunice.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, fine. Good morning.
Morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes, you're very, very clear.
Okay. Were you having a discussion?
Yeah, we just ran through the program. We just ran through the agenda, the one that I shared in the group, and we were just checking our device, whether we are connected and whether the audios are working. So So yeah. Okay. I've seen the presentation. Elizabeth is projecting. Maybe Elizabeth, you can put it in here. Presenters mode. Excellent.
Yeah, actually wanted to ask, is someone projecting the presentation, or when someone is present, they have to present it again? Is there someone in charge of projecting the presentation? Sorry.
I don't know. Eunice, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I think Elizabeth is presenting.
Okay, so she'll present throughout.
Elizabeth, confirm?
I'll project results.
Yeah.
So of course I'll be listening, and once you're done in the next slide, we move to the next. I'm projecting the latest slides that were edited by Pauline. So I hope that's the one that everyone has revised.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's in order. Okay. Yeah, we'll go through the slides as we're having that discussion, and we're starting. Eunice, you're the one who will be starting us off. Huh? So especially once we get to after the opening remarks. So maybe for now, because we'll be starting by welcome introductions and registrations. That one will be done by Moses. Yeah, I'm seeing quite a number of people are joining, so we are almost there in terms of starting. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Please you can write in the chat and just greet everyone as you join. Good morning. Good morning, Naomi. Good morning. And Maranga, kindly confirm if the meeting is being recorded. I know we are streaming live on YouTube, but Maranga, kindly confirm if the meeting is also being recorded. Hello, Maranga or Rabach? Please confirm, or we are just streaming live from YouTube.
Yeah, which we'll record, but we are yet to record it because we will officially begin at 10. So that's when we'll record.
Great. Okay. All right, sawa. Do we need to ask for consent? I know this recording thing is, so we need some consent
No.
to
Just
guide us.
inform them that the meeting shall be recorded.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay, so that they know we are streaming live on YouTube, but we are also recording it for the purpose of reporting. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Leslie, for making some groundwork. It's now at 10, and I see at least we have 22 people in the meeting, the webinar. If we can kindly allow maybe for those who have not joined to join in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so that we can start off the webinar, the session.
Great,
Sorry,
great.
I'm
That's
sorry I
okay.
didn't introduce myself. My name is Moses Chavene from Turinet, and I'll be doing the moderation for the session today. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Moses. Yeah, 5 minutes works. We'll give it next 5 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, we are pleased to have you in this meeting. Yes, we were to start at exactly 10, but some of our stakeholders have not joined. We are waiting for them in the next maybe 5 minutes. Then we can start off. It's a very short session today. We'll try our level best to keep to time so that we also achieve the objectives of the meeting. So we ask you and please to bear with us as we wait for the participants to join. We should be starting shortly. Our host Maranga, if you feel that we have quorum, you can also give us thumbs up to start the meeting. Thank you so much, our stakeholders, for joining today's meeting. I think I've been informed that we have a quorum to start, as we also await for others to join. It's our pleasure to have you this morning to honor our call to be part of this webinar today. The webinar is about reporting, investigating, and eradication of child sexual exploitation and abuse in Kenya. Most often you will hear CSEA cases, and this was majorly focusing on assessing the functionality of child protection services through survivor journeys and the case management processes. That was done in 7 counties, across 7 counties in Kenya. And this will be informed by our ABLE team that will be presenting on the study findings to see how we can action on the findings. So I welcome you all to this webinar today and express our sincere gratitude on behalf of Midriff Matters Network and our partners that you took time to join us to this particular session today. My name is Moses Chabene, and I will be your moderator for today's session. And we appreciate each one of you for taking time to join from different counties, different organizations, and your participation in this particular session demonstrates our shared commitment to strengthening systems that protect children and improve responses to child sexual exploitation and abuse in Kenya. So we are really honored to have you today, I should say so. And I beg that as we begin this session, to just pass a few announcements that as we join today, we will be live also on YouTube, and we seek your consent to allow us to do so. We will also be recording the session for the purpose of our reporting, in-house reporting. And we also commit that the discussions that will be held in this particular session will be kept with the highest or utmost confidentiality. So feel free to share if you have any reservations on that. We'll also ask you to, because we are many, we won't be having an open session where people will introduce themselves, but rather we will ask you to introduce yourselves in the chat box. I hope that everyone's chat box is open. So you'll state your name, maybe your county where you are joining us from, the organization you represent, and if you also willing to share your email address, we would request you can also share for further communication after the webinar, including sharing the final report that we will be presenting to you today, so that you interact with it, and of course look for areas that interests you in terms of protection of in terms of improving the child protection services in Kenya. So feel free to state your name, county, organization, and email address. Of course, it will also be helpful for us for further communication after this particular session today. We have also, we would also like to kindly request that when you join, because our microphones are open for everyone, as much as it's a webinar, you keep them closed until you are requested or you raise your hand to share your views regarding the presentations today, so that we have that ample time, smooth time in terms of making productive the time that we have today productive. Please, if you have any question before the presentations are done, you're also kindly requested to post them on the chat. We will all pick all of them during the plenary session, where we will try our level best to respond to each one of your questions. So those are just a few ground rules or some announcements that I would like to make, because we are working within a 2-hour program, so we shall keep it strictly to that time to ensure that we also don't take much of your time. We know you are busy and you might be having other engagements of the day. So allow us to operate within that particular space so that we also ensure that the objective of this webinar is met. For us to start us off officially and set the stage for today's engagements, I now invite Mr. Leonard to take us through today's agenda and provide an overview of Midriff Humorous Network, so that everyone is on the same page in terms of the convening organization and why we requested you to be part of us today. Over to you, Leonard.
Thank you very much, Moses, and good morning, everybody. Welcome to Midriff Urinet. Midriff Urinet is a non-profit organization in Kenya, and we have been in existence since 2008, dedicated to advancing peace, good governance, and human rights. Our work is mainly anchored on three strategic priorities, which are peace building and conflict transformation. And in this, we engage stakeholders and empower communities to resolve conflicts and foster a culture of peace and security. Our second strategic priority is good governance and human rights advocacy, where we promote transparency, accountability, and civic participation. And we also do institutional strengthening, which is both inward and outward. Here, inward, we look at strengthening Midriff as an organization, but we also work to build the capacity of government institutions and state actors to collaboratively deliver on our mission of a more just and peaceful society. Now, in these three strategic priorities, we pride ourselves in working at the intersection of theory and practice. What this means is that we take theoretical, intellectual approaches and translate them into practical interventions, mainly at the community level. And that is why we have this, we are proud today to present to you this study that looked at investigating and adjudication of child sexual exploitation and abuse in Kenya, where the study assesses the functionality of child protection services through survivor journeys and case management processes. My colleagues are going to speak more about the study, but we have to admit that it is a seminal study looking at the systemic pressures that face Kenya's child protection responses, and also looking at clear opportunities for strengthening the survivors' journeys, as well as stimulating discussions on the child sexual exploitation and abuse in Kenya. So mine is to welcome all of you who have joined us online. Please feel free to participate and discuss, as well as listen to our presenters in terms of what the study found and the suggestions that are there. Thank you very much. Have a good morning and welcome to this webinar. Thank you very much. Back to you, Moses.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leonard, for setting the context and introducing Midriff's work. Sorry. Before we start, I just need to share with you what the day will look like, or the 2 hours will look like. After Leonard's remark, and I would like kindly request Leslie to check whether we have a government representative who will open for us and, of course, give remarks. Then we will have a presentation from our key research personnel in midrift, that is Eunice Pande, Leslie Lono, and Elizabeth Nyango, who will be presenting on background of the research problem and design, the research resource and findings, then recommendation and the survivor journey as a product of the study. Then later on, we'll have an open session for question and answer, and of course, the way forward. Then we will have closing remarks as we wind up the webinar. So as we proceed, I hope Eunice, you are ready, as Leslie confirms whether we have any government official to at least give opening remarks. Leslie, do we have a representative of government in the meeting?
Good morning. Yeah. In terms of the introductions, I'm seeing more chat, but we haven't yet had somebody from government. But I'm seeing some of the names are quite familiar in the room. So I'm seeing Anchege. I'm seeing Baraza. Kindly please just do some introductions in the chat. Then we'll give you an opportunity to say something. I'm also seeing Viola. But for the meantime, as they do that, Eunice, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for that background sharing. Our dear stakeholders, thank you so much for joining us today. And we are really pleased to share with you about this study. This study is mainly on child sexual exploitation and abuse. And as my colleague Leonard has shared, we intended to check or to investigate the process or the journey of a survivor from incidents of reporting, from when the incident happens, reporting, during investigation, and through to adjudication. This child sexual exploitation and abuse is a global public health issue, and globally, the estimates of children, violence against children, with reports from UNICEF, and also some reports from World Health Organization, with reports from our partners, Childlight, We Protect on online child protection, online child abuse, and globally, it's estimated that almost 1 out of 5 children experience cases of abuse in their childhood. UNICEF estimated in 2025 that 1 in 5 children were subjected to sexual violence. And also some reports from We Protect share that male children experience sexual violence in childhood. And in Kenya, child sexual exploitation and abuse has also been recognized as a public health crisis. And nationally, an average of 31.3% of cases of defilement. Reports by UNICEF estimated that almost 46% of adults, or half number of adults, both girls and boys, and that is like 1 out of 2 of people have experienced childhood sexual violence or any other form of violence, whether physical, sexual, or psychological. And this also is accompanied with some studies and reports from GVRC and also the National Crime Research Centers, showing that the prevalence of child sexual and exploitation and abuse going higher. And most concerning thing is that when it comes to gender, 52% of young men, according to UNICEF report in 2023, had experienced childhood sexual violence. 46% of women or girls also experience within the age of 18 years to 24 years. So these are really, really concerning issues of child sexual exploitation and abuse that drove our need to access the issues of child sexual exploitation and abuse through systems in operations, through the case management processes, and looking at the major issues in Kenya, including the increasing high-driven or penetration of children to internet. And government of Kenya has made significant efforts in addressing the issues of child sexual exploitation and abuse, including the online CSCA. However, there are still gaps in implementation of the available laws and also policies that have been put in place. We realize that many of stakeholders, or call them duty bearers and service providers, despite knowing some of these policies on sexual violence or the Children Act and different forms of sexual violence policies, they still gap in implementation, and also there's still knowledge gap on the emerging trends in child sexual exploitation and abuse, especially issues of child trafficking, issues of online child sexual exploitation and abuse. We also noted gap in cases of resources and how these planned activities cannot be carried out because of insufficient resources. There are still gaps in inadequate disaggregated of data, which is a huge challenge in Kenya. Even though there are estimates from different organizations, but Kenya UGD still have gap in how for a nationwide data, disaggregated data and estimates on issues of child sexual exploitation and abuse. And because of this, we found the need to conduct this research so that we talk to stakeholders who works with child survivors of abuse, from reporting to investigating to adjudication, to understand what are the gaps in case management, what are the challenges, what are the gaps in policy implementation. And by this, this study had 4 main objectives. And objective number 1 was to assess the capacity and capability of CSCA's investigation and child protection system at both county and national level. By this, you are looking at what are the available, for example, what are available online or data systems that are used in every organization, institution, from when cases are reported to education. You are also mapping the survivor journey of CSCA investigation, including case management and case referral processes. So we are checking we are working with the survivor. What is the journey of survivor of child sexual exploitation and abuse when the incident happens, till when aftercare, after education, and what are the some of the positive moments of survivor, what are some of the negative moments of survivor, and this we'll find when our colleagues will present our published journey of a survivor with key pain points, with the key processes, and also with the key positive moments in the case management system. We also wanted to understand what are the available legislations and policies in CSCA in Kenya, and how are they integrated in the systems. We also, through this, wanted to know, do the stakeholders, mainly caregivers, service providers, do they understand the current and available policies on child protection, and how are they implementing these? Are these policies effective? What are the gaps? And finally, at the end, we tended to give recommendations. Number one, in the journey of survivor, and how the journey of survivor can effectively be improved. We wanted to give also recommendation on data systems because of the various studies that be done on the gaps on data systems. So in this study, we got findings on the data system and how can the data system be improved. And this is a discussion that we'll have afterwards, towards the end. We also intended to give in recommendation on the pinpoints on system gaps in the registration and policy frameworks. For example, when it comes to case durations, case process during the access to justice, what are some of the gaps in legislations and policies, and how can this be addressed? So we left this to be these findings will be a discussion at national level, at county level, and how us as stakeholders can improve these processes, the survivor journey, and also the system through the case management processes to strengthen the systems in CSCA investigation. I think this study now we wanted to check on. We carried it through several our methodology was triangulated through both qualitative and quantitative data designs. And qualitative, mostly we use the observational, which is both qualitative and quantitative. We did informant interviews, and also we did case reviews. Observational studies, we did it on about 56 agencies in different counties, and also we did 58 key informant interviews and 356 case reviews. This data collection was done in 7 counties: Nairobi, Mombasa, Garissa, Kisii, Busia, Kisumu, and Nakuru County. Majorly grounded on the fact of issues of prevalence, the estimated prevalence, and also targeted counties within the borderline counties and also urban areas, capturing both urban and rural context, and mainly focusing on key stakeholders or frontliners when it comes to handling cases of CSCA, or those who work closely with survivors. I think Elizabeth, you can go to next slide. Yes, so that was all, and just to clarify that this study was vigorous, and we also ensure that good ethical and safeguarding procedures were considered throughout pre, during, and post data collection, and also during when we are engaging with the main stakeholders in this. We acquired approvals from NACOST, the ethical review committees, and also main stakeholders like the children's services, the national police stations, just to ensure that we were the data we collected were well approved. and because we're dealing with very sensitive survivor cases that needed a lot of safeguarding, and safeguarding were done mostly by researchers and also the research assistant. Thank you so much, and I think I'll hand it over to Moses.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Eunice, for laying a solid foundation and helping us understand how this study was undertaken. Building on that background, we now move to the core findings from the research. I now invite Leslie to make the study findings presentations. Leslie, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Moses. And thank you, Eunice, for that overview. It's important to have that journey and to understand where we came from and the processes that went into the research design. So my name is Leslie Rono. I work for Midrift Human Rights Network, and I'll be presenting the findings or the results that emerged from this report. We conducted the study the whole of last year. And so this data is very recent, and it's informing and reflecting the ideas or the findings that we were able to gather from the 7 counties of investigation. So I'll just begin by demographic data, just to give an overview about some of the findings that we got in terms of the demographic groups that we investigated. So in terms of the age of the survivor, we were able to review case files that were in the courts, and some of you really opened your doors to us when we came to the counties, and you were able to give us access to court files that have been closed and that involve child sexual exploitation and abuse, the different forms. So we realized that majority of the survivors were between the ages of 6 and 11 years old. And when you look at the graph that is presented in front of you, we have 6 to 11 years old being a majority, especially when it comes to offline and online CSEA, followed by 12 to 15 years old. And when you look at 42.9% of the cases were reviewed for online CSEA, they were between the ages of 12 and 15. And then finally, between the ages of 16 to 18 years old. So majority of the cases we found that the survivors were between the ages of 6 to 11, and they were female. Okay. So that is the profile of the cases we reviewed. In terms of the age of the perpetrator or the accused persons in these cases, majority of them are between the ages of 18 to 35 years old. So these are adults, male adults, who are mostly accused or who are involved in some of the cases that we reviewed in court, followed by minors that are below 18 years of age. Those are 26%, followed by older adults, 35 to 60 years old, and above 60. Of course, there were some age categories that were not specified in the report, which we also documented at 35.1%. In terms of the relationship of the perpetrator to the child, when you look at secondary data, it tells us that most of the perpetrators or the people who abuse children are not really strangers. They have some form of relationship to the child, and our data corroborated that. So we realized that majority of the perpetrators were neighbors. So these are people around our children. So they were not really new persons. When it comes to the forms of CSEA that we reviewed, 57% were defilement and sodomy cases. According to the Children's Act of 2023, is that defilement and sodomy cases are categorized as defilement. So this was the most outstanding at 57%, followed by child trafficking for the purposes of child sexual exploitation and abuse, child pornography at 9%, followed by sexual assault, child abuse or neglect, leading to CSEA, incest, gang rape, sextortion, child marriage, and sexting. So these were the forms of CSEA that we got from the reports that we reviewed. You'll also realize that some of these cases involved multiple forms of CSEA. So they would involve defilement and also exposure to child sexual content, or defilement and trafficking. So you find others involve multiple forms. So our first objective, we were reviewing the existing data systems. We were assessing the capability and capacity of agencies in terms of handling these cases. And we realized that when it comes to data systems and the use of computers, a good number of the agencies that we reviewed use computers. And this was highest with the children's offices. 14 children's offices across the counties, all of them were using computers, which was quite commendable. Congratulations to the Directorate of Children's Services. Followed by healthcare facilities out of the 7 hospitals, and these were sub-county and county referral hospitals that we visited. Half of them, or 57.1%, have access to computers. Then we went to 14 police stations in these counties. So out of the police stations, we realized that a majority of them did not have computers at 64.3%. Then we went to the courts. We went to at least one court in the counties. And for the courts, very commendable. All of them had access to computers. Then we went to civil society and NGOs that are responsible with child protection. Some of you are here. We found that a good number, 84.6%, have access to computers. And then we went to the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecution. We were only able to interview 2 from the counties that we investigated, and all of the 2 have access to computers. So I know you're asking yourself, what is the linkage between having computers, and child protection? It informs issues of data protection. It informs issues of lost files, right, and missing data. So having a computer, we realize, has a linkage in terms of influencing the case durations and also the case outcomes, because longer case durations, which you'll see in the preceding slides, is that it also is affected by issues of documentation and case recording within our agencies. So we were also able to investigate what are some of the existing data systems that are being used by these agencies. In terms of the data system that is used for the DCS, they mostly use the CPMS, the Child Protection Information Management System, which envisions or is used mostly by the children officers. But I know this is a conversation we can have in terms of the need to integrate this system across the different agencies. They also use WhatsApp and the Miche program, especially for coordination and also for immigration and issues to do with cash transfers and education. For Childline Kenya, they mostly use the 116 child line, which is a toll-free helpline for anonymous reporting that is available 24/7. For the courts, we realize that they use the case tracker. They use the judiciary kiosk. They also transfer program and the CSOER, the Convicted Sexual Offences Register, which is digitized and it keeps the records of offenders who have been found guilty of sexual offences. Next. For the police, we realized that the ones that have computers, they use the National Police Information Management System, and this digitizes the occurrence book, or the OB, whereby they record incidences that are taken to the police station. For CSOs and rescue centers, we realized that they use the Vurugu Mapper, and they also use the record management systems just for internal record keeping, but also for the Vurugu Mapper for case. For hospitals, we realized that they use the Kenya Electronic Medical Record, the EMR, which helps in recording patient details and is accessed only and mostly by medical officers. All hospitals also use Medicap, and this was commissioned by Physicians for Human Rights, and it's currently used in Nakuru County under the Nakuru PGH Hospital, Molo Hospital, and also Naivasha Hospital. And then finally, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, they have the uadilifu system, and they use this to record criminal proceedings for the purpose of case follow-up, and is accessible to the public upon request. So when you look at some of these data systems, you realize that they assist in terms of case management, they assist in terms of case tracking, and also in terms of recording previous offenders who have been found guilty in cases involving CSEA. Next, we were able to ask them further, with the data systems that we use, are they effective in terms of addressing what you need to do as an agency? And we realized that with Children's Office or the Directorate of Children Officers, they said that majority of them, it works with them, it supports their work to a moderate extent. For CSOs, they also indicated that it works for them. For hospitals and the police is where they mention some challenges in terms of the use of the systems. And for the hospitals and the police, they associated these challenges to some logistical issues, issues of internet and access to power, which was mentioned by police officers. Others indicated that for us, we use manual records because of the lack of computers. Like a police officer in Kisii told us that we do not have a computer, we keep our records manually. Once a report has been written in the GBV a record book, that is where we keep our records. So yes, they have other manual data systems, but they face some challenges in terms of their use. Yes, next slide, please. The other one, we also realized that there's also challenges with coordination between the different agencies. So when they talk about collaboration networks, I know in several of the counties, they have the court users committees, they have the county advisory councils for children, they have the technical working groups on gender-based violence and child protection. So, as much as some of these coordination agencies are there, some of them have faced challenges in terms of coordination. And I'll give an example of a children officer from Garissa who told us that challenges with logistics of fuel when they go to the police station in terms of looking for immediate evacuation of a survivor, for example. In Nakuru, they talked about the issue of distance. A court is in Naivasha and they're based in Gilgil. And every time they have to ferry and travel that distance to be able to access the courts. And it has some logistical implications. We do not have airtime, especially when it comes to the children's volunteers, the CPVs, the child protection volunteers. They do a lot of work, but they mentioned the challenge about coordination and being facilitated to do their work. We also realized that another challenge and another gap is issues of duplication of roles in data in CSEA. Like what I talked about earlier, the agencies that exist in child protection. We have some organizations and some agencies that are not part of these coordination networks like the CUCs. And because they are absent, some of them are duplicating roles, particularly as a civil society groups. If you don't participate in a coordination group, it's easy for you to duplicate roles in the counties. And duplication of roles also brings about duplication of data, which was what something we found. And for the hospitals, they talked about a hospital in Nakuru, for instance. They said that you come to the health facility, they fill a PRC and a P3 form, which are legal documents for investigation. And then that person would refer to from one facility to another. And when they are referred to that next facility, especially in the referral pathway, the data is captured twice or thrice for this person. So you find that when we're looking at data at prevalence, we found these inaccuracies in terms of the data due to duplication. There's also the issue of the fragmented data systems, previous slide, in terms of the fragmentation also affects the accuracy of the data system. If we had one sort of hybrid system, it would be able to inform some of these issues with coordination and duplication. Access to treatment was also an interesting area for us. And we realized that 61% of survivors actually received treatment within 72 hours, which is the golden hour when it comes to investigation. However, we realized that despite this very progressive number, there was a challenge in terms of mental health services. Survivors were not receiving psychosocial support on time in terms of treatment, and this was associated with various factors. Number one is the issue of interview environments. Some of them are not safe for investigation. We also realized that there was gaps in terms of psychosocial counseling for the children. And some of the agencies, like the children offices, they have training in terms of counseling services, but other agencies do not have this. They have to outsource from civil society organizations and others. And even the hospitals, we realize that there's a challenge in terms of psychosocial service provision. They have access to medical treatment within the golden hour. The gap came in terms of mental health and psychosocial support. Yes. Next, we were also assessing the effectiveness of the legal frameworks. Kenya has very progressive laws and policies of addressing child sexual exploitation and abuse. So we asked the stakeholders from a scale of 1 to 5, how effective are the current laws in preventing CSEM? And 42% said that they are actually effective to a great extent. So majority were agreeing that the current laws are good. However, they mentioned that the challenge is in implementation. So we do not have a policy issue, we have an implementation issue. For example, a stakeholder talks about the challenge when it comes to implementation. This makes the laws and policies inefficient. Another stakeholder in Kisumu said that the laws mostly are leaning towards the girl's side, and they make it difficult for law enforcement officers to handle cases that makes the boy child as a victim. And of course, we are seeing that the male child also is vulnerable to sexual exploitation. So we realized that the current legal framework was criticized in the aspect of gender and also in terms of implementation. So those were the main issues that the stakeholders had with the current laws and policies in CSE. We also looked at case duration, or how long some of these cases took in court. Remember, we were able to review 356 cases and sampled 57 cases in the counties. And 33% of them were reviewed within 6 months. And that is very, very commendable. However, we realized that the proportionality was varying in the counties. Some counties, it was within 6 months, and that is Kisumu, Nairobi, Mombasa counties, which performed exemplary well in terms of the duration. However, in counties like Garissa, Busia, and Kisii, we realized that the cases would go for 2 to 3 years in average. So justice delayed indeed is justice denied. As much as the law does not specify on how long a case should take, it just indicates that it needs to be expedited and made faster. And what we realized in these counties where it's working, the 3 counties, is that number one, there is the existence of specialized courts like the SGBV courts, which mostly handle sexual offenses or cases involving sexual exploitation and abuse. We also realized that there are some best practices, especially in Kisumu, where they talked about the November being the Child Service Month. So they dedicate November exclusively just to hearing and resolving cases involving children. And this expedition was quite commendable. But in the other counties, Garissa, Busia, and Kisii, we realized that there were some gaps. And as stakeholders, I'm seeing we have people from these counties in the room. Maybe during the plenary session, we can also discuss what can be done or what can we borrow from these other counties that is working so that we ensure our children get justice in time. You know? Next was in terms of the case outcomes. And of course, some of these cases ended in convictions and imprisonment. Some of them ended with probation and aftercare. Some of them were acquitted. Some of them perpetrators were committed to Boston institutions. Some cases were withdrawn. Some cases perpetrators absconded. Others, they were found guilty, then they appealed and they were released. Some cases ended in fines, others were diverted. So majority of the cases, 42% of them ended in convictions. And in terms of the proportionality and the distribution per county, convictions were high in Kisumu, Busia, and for the online cases that we reviewed. However, convictions were a bit low in comparison when we look at Mombasa, Nakuru, and Garissa. And you realize that some of these case outcomes are also linked in terms of case durations. Some of the families would get tired in the course of pursuing justice, and they would withdraw the cases. In some cases, we found that the perpetrators would abscond. They would just take off, and no trace of them until today. The arrest warrant are still active, and they have not yet been brought to justice. For some cases, especially the ones involving minors, they were convicted to Boston institutions, and these are institutions for children or people below the age of 18 who are in conflict with the law. And some cases also ended with fines, depending on the nature of the cases. So those are some of the findings that we got from this study. And we were able to really, some of them were quite surprising, of course, looking at the nature of the work that we do. Some of them are an eye-opener in terms of what can we do as organizations and as agencies in terms of child protection. So thank you so much. That was my time. I hand it over back to Moses. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie, for those important findings. And as you rightly put it, from the findings that every study should ultimately inform action, and we look forward to that. Before I invite the next presenter, just to say that a link has been shared in the chat that you can access the full report of the findings, which of course you can utilize to do that. The next one is that you can also utilize this time to post any question or comment in the chat, even though we'll also have a plenary session where we'll have to get to hear from you, your questions, and of course respond to them. And of course, if you have any comment, you'll do that. To guide us on the recommendations emerging from the study, together with survivor journey that has been already presented here, I now invite Elizabeth to take us through that. Karibu sana, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Moses. Thank you, Leslie and Eunice, for setting the ground for this study and the presentation. So what I'm going to present here is survivor journey map. We call it the survivor journey map. So what you're seeing on your screen is a graphical illustration of the journey of the survivor, how the survivor moves from once the incident has happened, from reporting, here on my extreme left, here the reporting, how they move to how the case moves now to investigation, and also how the case now moves to adjudication, now the final step. So this is just a graphical presentation, working on from the view, not of the stakeholders, but of the view of the survivor and how they go through this journey. So you will be able to see, like on the first stage of reporting, and just this is just a notation of how it is, not how it should be, how it is at the ground. When you see the we'll be highlighting the positive moments.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth. If you could kindly zoom, I can see people are really struggling to see. If at all you have capacity to zoom so that you can walk the participant through the journey, if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Allow me to share a zoomable one, as opposed to this the PowerPoint presentation. So I'll share the zoomable edited one. So here it is. I hope everyone can see my screen. Here is the survivor journey map.
Great, we can see. Elizabeth, go
You
ahead.
can see it. Okay, thank you. Now, as I was saying, let me just give like an overview. It's just like overview, then I'll zoom in as we go through the journey map. So this is just how it is from now the left side, where we're looking at the reporting stage here, from the reporting, moving on now to investigation and up to adjudication of the cases. But now we are focusing on the survivor journey. As you can see, we're seeing a child working with a guardian of their parent through all these stages. And then there are also graphical presentations of police, the courts, and also the medical facilities, and also like the medical personnel. So let's be starting on the first stage, which is now the reporting. At the reporting stage, how does it happen? Usually, most cases are reported at community level, right? The CHPs, the chiefs, or even at these hotlines, the child helplines. And depending on the severity of the case, some cases are referred to the children's offices, and some cases are usually presented to the police first for reporting. And when the case is reported to the police, either referred from the community level or from the DCS, when they've referred the child to the police, they're usually given a P3 form, and they're escorted to the child and their guardian are escorted to the clinic just for forensic, to gather forensic evidence, and also for medical attention for the child. And during this process of reporting, you find that what was coming out, even as it has been mentioned from the findings, is a swift response from the community actors. Once these cases are reported, immediately within 72 hours, they're reported either to the police or they're reported now to the medical facility for quick care. And usually it's very important because once this information, and not in, the information and also the evidence gathered at the clinic is what is used as evidence in the courts of law. But what was also emerging from the findings was that a pain point, as you can see here in red, is that the psychological support was not sufficient. Yes, the child was given the initial psychological support as part of the treatment and filling in the PRC form, but beyond that, the child was basically also referred to NGOs with the personnel who could do this. And this just points out now to the gap in form of personnel who would be able to offer this psychological support to the child. And once the case has been reported, evidence has been gathered the doctor has gathered the evidence and written it in the PRC forms. And now referral, now the investigation case, the case has been taken by the police to the ODPP now to begin the adjudication process. So usually sometimes not all children can go back to their homes. So they have to go to a shelter. So the child is usually referred to back to maybe a government shelter or a private shelter, or somewhere where they can also receive support. And then also, as an investigation is ongoing, also for protection of the child, for their mental health. And then also, as the case is going on, the case hearing. So what we see during this process, as the case is going on during this referral process to this child, the pain points is that most government shelters are few and they are crowded. And then survivors are usually, there's a duration. They're not hosted. If a case is to take 3 years, sometimes they're usually given a duration, maybe 3 months before they exit, because the cases are many and the space is not sufficient to host all children. And then also during this time, as the investigation is going on and the trial is also going on, you find that in some counties, there is usually the informal like dispute resolution, that they would use the informal traditional ways, which is wrong, of resolving these cases, sexual violence cases, which is illegal. It's not supposed to happen that way. So you find some communities use the maslaha, like in Garissa, they use the maslaha courts to resolve these cases. And also when also other communities are just call, if the perpetrator is a relative, you would find they would try and solve it without going through the court process, whereby the parents are either bribed or they're just trying to save the family face. But this is at the pain of the child, because justice is not being served. They're protecting the perpetrator as opposed to the perpetrator. And also one of the pain points was that sometimes these cases might take long, and this is the cost of transport for the child and their guardian or their parents. So you'd find that because of these resources, there's no transportation, and also the delay because of the cases are many, and also sometimes the crime scenes have been tampered with, because some of the cases you'd find the DNA maybe it was not collected on time, so there's no evidence to take to gather and take to court. I mean, even for testing, and also like sometimes I mean once it has been tampered with, there's also the issue of corruption, whereby the perpetrators are able to to escape justice once the order of arrest has been issued by the police. So these are some of the things that affect the child in terms when during the investigation processes and as the case is also in court being had. So when you look at also during the case hearing, somehow the case it finds in some of the counties there were positive moments whereby the child would stand in like a safe box where they would testify in a safe space. But in some counties, these safe spaces they did not have confidential hearing. These spaces were not non-existent, and this, as some of the findings will show in the report, is that would affect the case outcomes because the child stands before the court of law and they're meant to testify against the perpetrator. And some of these times, of course, if the child is not mentally well prepared or having sufficient psychological support, this might affect on the evidence that they give, contradicting even the evidence that they said during the reporting process, and also the evidence that they are presenting in court. So also during this court process, of course, the child might have received the initial psychosocial support, but it needs to be continuous because also this affects the case outcomes of how the child is meant to testify. Because sometimes they don't during this duration, even if that are taking 2 years, they might not receive the psychological support that they require from to require to even testify, to even just overcome some of these traumas that they are going through. So that's a pain point to the survivor. And then you find during also the adjudication process as it's come to an end and the case comes to a close. It's the case is closed and the child is taken back to the community, and this is also not good in terms of the psychological mental health of the child because there's meant to be a follow-up of how the child is progressing in the community and also who is also following up on their support, the mental support, also just not for even for the child, even for the community and the household that the child is in. How are they progressing on beyond the case? If the case was ended up in an acquittal, how are they progressing? If the case ended up in an arrest and the person has been taken to prison, how is the family progressing beyond now the case that has been that has ended? So these are just important. This is just important areas to look into also to the stakeholders here, especially the pain points. How do we make this journey of the survivor easier? But maybe the system might not be looking at how the child goes through, but it's some of the small issues that might make the case outcomes important, especially to the child. So the key actors, as mentioned in the findings that were targeted in this journey from reporting up to investigation, we see it's the police, it's the judiciary, it's the health workers, the Department of Children's Services, the CSO, and the ODPPs. These are the key actors, the main key actors. And you'll see as part of the recommendations, one of the main recommendations was that these key actors need to be trained in trauma-informed, how they can handle children, especially who've undergone sexual violence within the community. So this is just, this journey map is in our report. You can, after this, you can go and just walk through it slowly as you see how the child experiences the system, the gaps within the system that sometimes re-traumatize the child, and also where stakeholders can make recommendations that would help the child to even help the child to walk this journey in a way that they feel supported and also the families, and also the gaps that even the CSOs, we can work together as stakeholders to fill in. So this is just an elaborate journey. I'd like now to go back to see, now from these pain points, what are the stakeholders saying? What are these recommendations? How do we do it? And also during discussions, we can also share other recommendations and also how you can plug in based on the recommendations. So I'd like to go back to now the recommendations. Hope you can see my screen.
Yes, Elizabeth, we can see your screen. If you can put it in the presentation mode, please kindly. Thank you.
Okay. So for the recommendations, we divided them into three. How we will improve the survivor journey, like I've just demonstrated, how we can strengthen the data systems and the capacity, and also how the legislative and policy framework, how it can be improved. So the first about improving the survivor journey, the recommendation that we are also proposing, also that was coming out from the stakeholders, is to strengthen trauma-informed approaches for survivors. And this can be done by capacity building, especially the actors within the child sexual within the system dealing with children, on how to handle children at all stages. When a child comes to report during investigation process, during the court process, how can a child be supported to just ensure that they are mentally okay during this process, and also the systems, making the systems easier, not like it was mentioned. Sometimes you go to report, a child talks about the trauma. They go to the hospital, they talk about the trauma. They go to court, they still talk about the trauma. So how can the child be supported through this process, especially by training the actors and knowing how to go about it? And also about reducing the case durations and adjournments. This is just about the court's process prioritizing initiatives such as the child service month that was mentioned in Kisumu, and also having special courts just to deal with these cases. And this goes now back to the stakeholders, the judiciary and the ODPP, and even even the CSOs. How do we advocate for this, especially when it comes to children? And also just having a system integration, whereby the system can detect cases, especially of child violence, sexual violence that have gone beyond 6 months. How can these cases be flagged out and just prioritized for the benefit of the child? And also just about establishing mobile reporting units. One of the findings that was coming out was that reporting sometimes the findings show that 61% were reporting within the 72-hour duration. However, some were not reporting because of the distance and also the lack of these facilities. So having mobile units that would go to where the community is, especially where cases of child abuse are many, especially the border points, like when you're looking at Garissa and Busia, having mobile units whereby going to the community and these cases are recorded and reported at a timely manner so that the evidence is not lost because of maybe lack of transport or even just lack of facilities within the county. When you look about strengthening data systems and capacity, what was coming out is that there's fragmented information from each stakeholder. Each stakeholder is gathering information that is not shared with the next stakeholder, and also some of this information is lost within one system whereby this information is shared by all stakeholders who are interacting with these cases. So just having data having like for example, the CPIMS that was mentioned to be a good system, especially by the DCS. So just how can this system be opened for other stakeholders to also utilize, to report, to view cases, to track cases as well, and also just for the data to be in one place as opposed to in individual systems. Also, when you talk about enforcing a standardized forensic evidence preservation, because when there's delay in a medical examination, it affects the evidence that is going to be gathered. The report also highlights whereby the DNA, some of these costs, when the DNA costs, they were the family of the survivor. So how can this be standardized such that the costs are not borne by the family, because not everyone is financially capable to bear this cost, especially if you're in far counties and the DNA testing has to be done maybe in Nairobi or in Kisumu. So how can the cost be borne by the state as opposed to individual families? And then just having just a protocol whereby evidence the duration, how long do these forensic tests take, so that they're presented back to court for quick adjudication. And then also we're talking about continuous training of CACA actors, especially when you look at in data systems. Yes, of course, some of the institutions we mentioned, they have computers and they have these data systems, but sometimes you would find it's not everyone within that institution who knows how to use the system. So this is something that stakeholders can look into in offices where everyone within has the capacity to do so. And then also just training also on online CACA. It's an emerging trend. So how do you report online sexual violence against children? How do you do that? How can actors identify and report these cases and these emerging digital trends that are affecting children? So something that continuous training, especially on emerging trends like the online CACA. When you look at now recommendations on legislative and policy framework about conducting appropriate assessments before bail and bond, what came out from the findings was that some of the perpetrators would abscond bail, and this points out to because it requires various stakeholders, the police, the probation officers doing these assessments before the perpetrator is released. So how can the policies be tightened around the bail and bond so that survivors get justice? And then also having this pre-bail assessment reports for all suspects before the bail and bond is given. So those are some of the recommendations the stakeholders were mentioning, and also that we thought were good. Also conducting awareness creation, the consequences of traditional systems. Like I'd mentioned, some of the communities in the counties, they were using maslaha systems of the kangaroo courts. So just having because it could point to lack of awareness. So how can they be trained? How can the community made aware that some of this, when they go the traditional way, using the traditional systems, there's a consequence to that? And also, how when someone in the community sees that happening, what are the procedures of reporting to ensure that the person pushing for these traditional systems is held to account? Some of those recommendations, and also just a strict application of CACA laws, whereby of course the law highlights how each case of child sexual violence is the years meant for a perpetrator. So, and when we're just going through counties, there was just that discrepancy coming out in terms of how many years were coming, the adjudication. Of course, it depends with the court's discretion, but just having that strict application of these CACA laws across all counties, and then across all courts, so that there's no that discrepancy in the type of judgment that is coming out from this child sexual violence cases. So that marks the end of our recommendations. I open it up for this.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. We have now heard the complete presentation from the background, methodology through to findings and survivor journey map and recommendations. We now are at the stage of opening the floor for discussions, and I encourage participants to either raise their hand electronically or post questions in the chat. I've already seen Rafik has posted something on the chat, and the next person who's taking over will kindly reach out to and of course read the comment. keep your questions brief and indicate the presenter to whom your question is directed where possible, if you feel like, or if you can just ask a general question. But to take us through that, I now invite Pauline to open up the floor for discussion. Karibu sana, Pauline.
Thank you very much, Moses, and my fellow researchers, Elizabeth, Leslie, and Eunice, and of course, Moses, you're also a fellow researcher in this study. And I want to thank all the participants for your attentiveness and keen following of the presentation. And now welcome questions from the presentation. There's already a comment from Rafik. Rafik, thank you very much for your comment. You've raised a very pertinent issue that came out during the research on the fragmented information, and it is true that the different actors and agencies handling children's matters, especially on child sexual exploitation and abuse, they have fragmented data, they do not share information, and that is why one of the very strong recommendations from our research is that we need to strengthen the data systems and capacities. And because the Directorate of Children's Services is the one mandated to handle children's matters, then we have strongly recommended that they need to mandate the integration and compulsory use of the child protection information management system, so that all the partners, all the parties and agencies that are handling these CSA cases can feed into the system, so that there can be coordination also of response. Thank you very much for that. I would also like, I open now the chat, the floor for people to ask questions. Thank you, thank you, Lilian Misaro from Sisters of Mercy in Nairobi. Thank you very much for your comment about our presentation. Yes, Rafik, you can unmute and ask your question.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rafik Mohammed. I am a very keen observer of what we call well-functioning government. I am here in Nakuru County. I operate at the CBD. My organization is called Credible Investment. I am very happy that you have actually been able to assess data and display the importance of data and how information can be a very good tool for us to organize and manage the challenges that we have currently in protection, and also given a good environment where we can harness collaboration and partnership to be able to address the partnership and collaboration that can enhance systemic change for the protection and also the enhancement of the players to be able to offer that kind of services that are required. I am very keen about the fragmented information and the process that will require to bring about a change in attitude, so that this fragmented information, as much as it is very protected towards the people who are affected by child abuse or child challenges, it is also very key that the partner organizations that have the processes and the systems available to them through access of information, so that they can disperse this information to the communities through either the CBOs or through community people like residents associations or churches or others, because that costs money, and we have seen a very poor civic education process that relates to either a lack of capital or lack of goodwill. The government of the day and the future governments need to be able to have a conversation towards acknowledging that these needs need capitalization. I recommend and I strongly feel that that challenge of fragmented information should be taken very seriously, and you are doing a great work, and I appreciate your work, and I would like to also commend that you continue putting pressure that we have a source of information that will be able to be accessed and used for the betterment of our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Rafik, for your very valuable comments and reinforcing the fact that we need to address this matter of fragmented data seriously, because indeed, if we do not have data and we need to, use data to drive policy, you need to use data to also develop robust interventions, then we will be missing the point. As an organization, have we are in the process of engaging with the policymakers so that we can see how can we work together with other partners to ensure that this issue of data integration is taken as a priority, and the government now starts working towards now this process of ensuring that all the stakeholders are working together in terms of sharing the data and using the same data to support and ensure that the services given to the survivors are, uh, are properly undertaken. Thank you so much for that. I can see that we also have a comment from Kath Hill. Thank you very much, all the way from the UK. You said that there are parallels within the Kenyan system and the UK context, and especially in relation to access to social support. Your context indeed does not struggle with technology, but you do have issues with different professionals working on different systems, like the police use a different system from the health services. And indeed, it seems that this issue of data sharing is not just in Kenya, but it is also in other countries. I think this now points to a global concern that in different countries, the governments need to come up with the proper systems of data sharing, because remember, children are our future and they need to be protected, and whatever systems are used to address their such cases like child sexual exploitation and abuse should be done in such a way that there is no fragmentation of data and there is coordinated response mechanism. I can see a hand from Caroline. Caroline from Shofco, welcome. Unmute and ask your question or give your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pauline, and thank you so much for inviting Shofco to be part of this very good presentation, and also we participated in the data collection. Thank you, Eunice, who coordinated us from Shofco. I have a key ask for the people who did the study. If in any way you can find some time to come physically to any of the Shofco offices, and we can create time, because currently we're implementing a very big program that is going to run for the next 5 years. It started in 2024, and one of our major aspect is child sexual gender-based violence issues, dealing with defilement cases, working with judiciary or DPP and all the justice actors to fast track cases in court, especially for defilement, and also before then, even to do a lot of prevention work, which we are doing a lot in 15 counties. And we'll do this program until 2029. And with this study has given us a very good, it has given us insights on the survivor's journey, what our team experienced, because we have a team of almost 70 caseworkers and gender champions across the different counties. And the learnings from this good study has really given us insights. So I will be writing an email to your organization to see if you can come and just do a physical presentation so that we have one-on-one interaction, because currently we're engaging the DCS, we're engaging the courts, we're engaging magistrate, ODPP, we're engaging the children's offices, and all actors involved in protecting children in this country to ensure children are protected, and the ones who've been defiled or they've gone through sexual violence, be it girls or boys, for ensuring their cases are fast-tracked in court, and also increasing for convictions and holding perpetrators accountable. So I'll really appreciate, and that's my feedback. And I think some of our team members are here, and we are glad to be part of this study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We acknowledge be able to respond or address these issues. Framework, we have to work together as partners, and we look forward to working and partnering with SHOFCO so that we can at least try and see to it that what has come out during our research, we can be able to, get it to the communities and actually help addressing the existing gaps that are existing, especially in the government systems. Thank you so much, and we acknowledge and are happy that you already are working on this report, or you're working on this project, and that our report is going to give you a lot of insights in terms of the implementation. I can see there was a comment from Naomi June. Naomi, you asked, you said that technology and its positive significance is also a threat when it comes to CSEA, as seen that children between 6 and 11 years. There is a need to delve deeper to explore the remedy for this. What do the researchers think? Yeah, children between 6 and 11 are also affected online. I would like to invite my colleague Leslie to respond to just take up that question and respond to it. Leslie?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Paulina, for that presentation and submission. I think first I'll just comment the work that SHOFCO is doing in terms of child protection. Thank you so much, Caroline, for extending the invite. And indeed, in this advocacy work, we really need to pull our hands together and pull our resources together so that we can be able to fight for the rights of children. So definitely, we are very much willing to collaborate with SHOFCO in terms of addressing some of these concerns, and also using the findings from this study to inform policy. Naomi, thank you. In terms of technology, indeed, yeah, technology is really coming through, especially in our urban areas. Nowadays, we are seeing children really using gadgets at the home and even at school. So indeed, exposure to online predators is rising. Now, online predators you know, are looking at the vulnerable children, and they're using apps and social media pages to reach to our children. So indeed, the issue of online CSCA is a real problem, and it's mostly targeting this age category. So I really agree with you, and that I would say that violence and exposure to online content is really a problem. And even as we address some of our responses, can we see targeted responses for this category of children? Maybe raising awareness about online engagements and talking to strangers and exposure to nude and pornographic content. Is this something that we can also do as agencies in CSEA so that we can address the issue of exposure? So I really agree with you. And there's also a need to delve deeper. And we normally say that researchers unpack opportunities for potential researches in future. So is there an opportunity we could do a paper in terms of exclusively online CSCA for children within this category and tailor recommendations for parents, for caregivers, for schools on how we can address this concern. So thank you so much, Naomi, for pointing that out. Back to you, Pauline.
Thank you, Leslie. Indeed, research always brings out areas for further research, and indeed, it is an area that can be explored further. I can see that Angelina from all the way from Tanzania. Thank you, Angelina, for participating. And you're saying that in addition to the recommendations on awareness creation, educating the community about the importance of educating a child is protection in itself. A child who is out of school is at the greatest risk of abuse, violence, and exploitation compared to the one who is at school. That is very true. It is true indeed that education, when children are at the school, they can be provided with all this information about how they can protect themselves. And it is true we need to encourage parents, community members to ensure that our children go to school. When you are doing the data collection, also there are recommendations about partnering like the Ministry of Education, for example, so that this information can be cascaded to the schools, having age-appropriate, awareness to the children about the dangers of online or of child sexual exploitation and abuse, including how this can happen also on the online spaces. So it is true, we need to also encourage parents to educate their children, and at the same time also be aware that these are some of these findings, like what we have in our research, can also be cascaded to children using age-appropriate methods like through IEC materials, so that once they see that indeed I need to protect them myself, and this is a protocol I should use in case some am in danger, then at least that is also going to enhance awareness creation and protection. Thank you, Caroline, for your invitation to Midriff to visit your offices. Indeed, that is a welcome invitation, and we'll definitely pursue that. There's a question from Joseph Macharia, where you're asking about from the presentation, 79% of the survivors were aged between 6 and 11. You're asking whether there are known risk factors or reporting patterns that explain why such a large proportion of survivors fall within this age group. And you're also asking, do we have the full age distribution of the survivors? And then you're also asking, are boys and older adolescents less likely to be identified or to disclose abuse? I would like to invite Elizabeth to take up that question. Elizabeth Karibu.
Thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Joseph Mashara, for that question. It's indeed a good observation that from the counties that you reviewed, the cases where reviewed the cases, what is coming out was this age group, 6 to 11 years, were the easily targeted. And there are many several risk factors of why this age group, this age group is such a high proportion from this study. It's especially because the environments where they interact, you'll find that some of these children, like the 6-year-olds, some of them are yet to start school, and then also they frequently interact with adults because they need supervision. Especially when you look at the counties we're going to and the cases we're reviewing, they had an element of poverty. So you'd find probably the parents are outside, meaning maybe they left early to seek for work or to look for money, and then the child are left with supervisors. The findings also showing that the perpetrators, especially for these age groups, were people well known to the families. There could be neighbors, there could be relatives, and there just even could be someone very close within the household. So the environment where these children mostly interact, the community setup, and also for this age group, they lack the developmental capacity to recognize abusive behavior. They might not know what is friendly and what is abusive. So before the action leads to abuse, they might not tell that maybe the giving of sweets the the laughing, the tickling is part of abuse, is lack of grooming to such an atrocious act. So this age group is such a target because that they do not know when to report abuse, and then they are most likely easily to be not to be threatened, not to report such cases. And usually we find that it is probably the guardians who maybe realize this child has been harmed. That's when they go and report. So yes, the study had a age distribution of the survivors just based on the records. Some records didn't have like a clear age distribution, but when you look at the study, all of it, you'll be able now to just interact and see the age distribution of the children undergoing violence. But the majority of the cases that were reviewed was between this age group, 6 to 11 years. We've also asked about boys or older adolescents less likely to be identified or to disclose abuse. Boys are also abused. Maybe the cases were not as high as the young girls, and it might not. It does not mean that they're not facing abuse. They are facing abuse, but when you look at also some additional barriers to disclosure, there's issues about stigma. When let's say when an adolescent young man going through those stages, reporting about the abuse that they've gone through, some might not speak out for fear of being perceived as weak, or maybe the stigma surrounding that. So that might also affect the reporting. It does not mean that abuse doesn't happen. It does happen in schools and also at household level. Just when you look at the age, the adolescent boys at that age, there's a lot. There might be as they develop. There's the issues about blaming themselves for such an incident, or even they might want to handle such incidences without involving their parents, their guardians, or even authority. So the observation, the findings might show young girls are also being are mostly majorly affected, but which is true, but also it does not undermine that boys and even adolescent boys are also facing violence. I hope I've answered your question, Joseph.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for that elaborate response. I can see Joseph was also asked, it's a comment about he would be interested in seeing data on the level of children's participation in case management, including their involvement in case planning and case closure. What I would like to mention here is that we interacted with the files at the court registries. We did not participate in interviewing children, the survivors. We did not do that. And that is why maybe we may not have that data. And but this is an interesting area that can be looked into in terms of further research, and maybe my colleague Leslie could be having additional points to that. Leslie, karibu.
Thank you so much, Pauline. And I really do agree with you. I think because of ethics and issues of interviewing children, we were not really able to interact with this population and see their level of participation in case management. But definitely, Joseph, I agree with you that looking at children as active players in the case management is quite important, especially in case planning all the way to case closure is within the survivor journey map. And I will really echo what you've said, and also what Naomi said earlier. This could inform future studies, right, in terms of the level of involvement of children, and maybe they could also be able to help agencies to tailor responses based on the age and also the needs of the children. So I really agree with you. But for this particular study, we did not go that direction. Thank you, Pauline.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Alice, can I?
Yes,
I don't know.
Eunice, yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't know if it's me, but just for point of clarification. clarification, if Joseph could speak out the comment, it seems I seem to look at it through different angle. Maybe if you can explain what his sentiments look like, then I can add something kindly.
Okay, thank you, Eunice and the team for the good presentation and very comprehensive analysis and what you have really nourished us with. On this question of child participation in case management is a question of concerns because most of the times we may feel like we are serving justice to these children in terms of service provision or even representation in access to justice, but not necessarily putting into consideration how their feelings, how would the whole process look like in terms of the access to justice. You know, the access to justice of different, they may feel like, okay, the case is continuing, but again, where is my position in this? Am I consulted? Am I given real information? Am I provided with adequate information? Are we put in, am I put in the picture of decision in making in terms of going to the next level? And that's why most of the times we may be providing interventions, feeling like they are best interest to the children, but they are not of interest to the children. They are not part and the parcel of it. They don't feel their participation. And that's why I'm asking all these questions, because it can also be a limitation in terms of how in future they are going to interact with services in terms of taking part in case management processes and such forth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joseph. I now understand you. During the study, we also wanted to know through the caseworkers, and I know there are caseworkers here, and how they follow up, mostly on follow up and giving feedback to survivors. Mostly at the CSO level, they usually give feedback and share with them information on the referrals. And also some institutions like healthcare, because they do issues of psychosocial support and also the testing, they usually give them, not entirely all, some institutions give. But also, I will also share that this is a gap, information sharing or feedback sharing to survivors. Some of the information feedback that were given to survivors included their test results, included maybe when they are needed in court for testifying in court, and also other forms of survivor engagement included them testifying in courts, them engaging with counselors. So at our level, when you are doing interviews with key stakeholders or case managers, and also with when you are reviewing files at the courts, we realize that most of the time survivors are engaged when they are giving report statements at the police level, with the police or incidents reporting with the CSOs, at the hospital, feedback mostly, test results, and also this counseling. At court, when they're giving their first statements, and also when they are giving their statements in court. So, so far, that's how much we could get on how survivors are involved in case management process. And I think we have stakeholders here. They can also share key case managers, people who work with survivors in the case management processes. They can also share this. And I think there is how they are engaged, but there's still a gap in information sharing or feedback, sharing feedback to survivors. Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you, Eunice. This was coming from the point of I was interacting with the children sometimes back, and these are children who have were in conflict with the law, and we have these the new trend of access to justice in terms of diversion. And as I was interacting with the survivors, they felt like I was never served justice, and really wanted to get their perspective in terms of why would you feel like justice was never served? As they said that no, the case was dismissed, and now the question was, how was this child involved? Was there participation? Were they informed about the court processes and the implications? And what are the maybe what are the some of the areas they will in terms of access to their expectation? How can we manage the expectation in terms of providing them adequate information? Like this case, bearing in mind it's of this nature, it may end this way or this way or this way, but the magistrate will give the final ruling of this. But again, in terms of post case support, they're not even informed. I will support you in ABCDF. Every now and then, everyone will be running up and down. The ODPP will be like, okay, this case now goes to the county, sub-county children's officer to take up in terms of other case management, share it with the counselors for counseling and such forth and about other things. But now the child is not informed about all those processes after the court and all these. That's where my question was coming from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Indeed, one of the findings that came out from the research was that when it comes to psychosocial support of the survivors, that is largely missing. And even when it is provided, it is very basic. So that is a gap, and one of the strong recommendations is that all the actors with the child protection system need to be trained on trauma-informed approaches, so that this child, the journey, the journey, the survivor, at every step, there is social support provided. That means that we need to have all the partners working together, including the psychologists, so that and on all the the different parties, the different partners, the agencies, both government, state and non-state actors, so that we can work together towards enhancing the survivor journey. Indeed, the issue of psychosocial support came out as a very strong gap. And just to mention that whenever a case is reported in court, there is a corresponding protection and care file that is normally opened. So that when the case is ongoing, then any support given to the survivor is filed in that protection and care file. But you realize that even the protection and care files that we were able to come across, they were lacking in the support that is documented and it is being given to the if there is a strong and robust informed mechanism, then at least I will also actively engage in terms of get feedback to know whether they feel they are being supported. And I believe that is the strong recommendation on improving on trauma-informed approaches is something that also be supported by engaging children and ensuring that the survivor and the care of the long survivor is very enhanced. Thank you very much. See Eva Richard from CHESO, thank you for your recommendation that, and all the participants here, we seek membership to the International Alliance for Child Protection in Humanitarian Actions because they provide global accepted standards for child protection in humanitarian actions, and these will optimize our work on child protection. Thank you very much, CHESO, for that. Indeed, we'll take that up. Rafik, thank you because of your positive outlook in terms of also seeking partnerships, and we need to work together indeed so that we can enhance the welfare of our children. There was a question by cannot remember, about online sexual exploitation and abuse by Nancy Uhuru Moses. Kindly, you can take that up. Okay. Eunice, you can take the question on by Nancy. She's said that it's unfortunate that almost every case we've talked about seems to be offline. There is an emerging trend of online sexual exploitation and abuse, where the mothers are the perpetrators. And you're saying that kindly we can explore this too. Maybe you can just give a comment, Eunice, on that.
Yeah, thank you. Nancy, I agree with you. The emerging trends of CSCA in Kenya. And this study, we are able to capture, we were able to review cases from the Anti-Human Traffic and Child Protection Unit, which is a national-based institution that investigates cases of online child sexual exploitation and abuse in the country. And their data, maybe Elizabeth can share that slide online. Yes, and we realized that when you're doing case reviews and
Hello, Eunice. We've lost you.
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. You had called me. Let me jump in as Eunice connects to internet. Yes, Nancy.
Usually you measure so awareness and also knowledge. So it's a gap in reporting. There's a gap in reporting of these cases. At court level, there are almost no cases of online CCA through the records that we're able to access that were reported in the court. So that shows a really huge gap. That's why we got for some recommendation on capacity building for stakeholders. And of course, there are some organizations and institutions that are already doing capacity building on online CSCA to ensure proper reporting and case management in these cases. And also, we are calling for just urging our fellow stakeholders to do more awareness creation or sensitization on the cases of online or technology facilitated CSCA. And yeah, for me, that's what we found. But we are still hoping and working as stakeholders to ensure that the CSCA, online CSCA cases are reported. And also there's data on this. There's a few data, but mainly with the anti-human traffic and child protection. Thank you so much. I saw a colleague from the anti-human traffic and child protection unit. Maybe she can add something on this. Is she still there? Is it Anne? Yes, that's
Yeah, this is Nancy from AHTPU. Thank you. Do you have maybe, Nancy, do you have, because you've also been doing investigation on this child online sexual exploitation and abuse. Do you have anything more that maybe you can shed some light on the same? Sorry, Nancy's network is not stable, and I would like to thank all the participants and all your questions, your comments, your recommendations. I would now like to hand over back the program to Moses so that he can help us in winding up. Moses, karibu.
Okay, thank you so much, Pauline, for that good session, and we appreciate the participants for sharing their discussions and views, comments, questions regarding this study and the presentation. We really wish to appreciate you all for this. We are almost coming to an end of our session today, and we believe that we've done justice in terms of time. We only have two aspects that we need to speak to: the way forward, and of course, the closing remarks from our end. And I would just share what I've gathered to in terms of the way forward. And of course, if there is any comment towards that, any person could feel free to raise your hand up and of course, share any other thing. And of course, my colleagues in the team can also summarize what they have gotten from this particular session. Three things. One is in terms of a partnership seeking that several participants have shared in terms of the willingness to partner with both MIDIFT and, of course, stakeholders within this space of child protection. Remember that we were looking at the functionality of child protection services and, of course, looking at the survivor journey. So we look forward to that as a way forward in terms of how do we partner along this journey. And this partnership, as you've rightly shared, is in terms of you seeking our presence in terms of physical presentation, or rather presentation to your larger organizations, also to see how you can help in terms of implementation. We've also had some way forward from JESO, which we really appreciate if MIDIFT and of course the stakeholders in this working space that are now participating in this particular webinar, if we can also get into membership with International Alliance for Child Protection in Humanitarian Actions, which of course we look forward to that. We will explore, which of course Cheso is already a member from Tanzania. Another area that I'm also sharing from our end is that we are looking forward to having a popular version of this research. We've already shared a link for the main research report, but we are looking forward to have two documents out of it that is easily with the stakeholders. One is in terms of the popular version, a shorter version of the research that we hope we will share. Then another area is in terms of a policy brief that we are working on to inform advocacy. We are looking forward also to sharing with you in due course. That's the reason why we said that please kindly feel free to introduce yourself, especially around your name, county, the organization you are working with, and of course feel free to share your email so that we can further the discussion beyond this particular webinar. For those who are joining us from outside Kenya, also please feel free to share in the chat your email address, where you are joining us from, and of course your name, the organization we present, so that we can also further this discussion, because it's a journey that we need to walk together. Maybe back to you, Leslie, if you've picked anything in terms of the way forward, so that
Yes.
we can move to the next step.
Thank you so much, Moses, and really for highlighting the need for continuous conversation on these issues, and really the partners that were able to join us. I really wanted Nancy to give some remarks from the DCI Anti-Human Trafficking and Child Protection Unit, because they've really been a partner that we have worked in this journey of conducting this research. But she's indicating that her network has not been stable. So I would just request that we proceed with the program as we head towards the closure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for that. Kindly, Nancy, you can share your views or your closing remarks on the chat, if that will be work for you, now that your internet is unstable. Thank you all for joining us. I now invite Leonard to give us the final remarks. But before he does, on behalf of Midfield Human Network and our partners, I sincerely thank you all, government officials, for your valuable time and contributions. It's been a very good and insightful webinar that you've shared. Your meaningful, and of course, hoping that the discussions will translate into stronger collaboration and action to improve responses, and of course, looking at the survivors, and of course, strengthening our systems that looks into child protection services in Kenya. I wish you a wonderful day as I invite Leonard to close for us officially. Leonard, please, as you introduce yourself officially, are you in Midrift? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Moses, for guiding us through the session. And to everybody else, good afternoon. It's just turned into the afternoon. My name is Leonard Gedai. I'm the Deputy Executive Director here at Midrift Urinet. And on behalf of my colleagues who are here, who made the presentations here, and the others who are supporting behind the scenes, we would like to thank you very much for joining today's webinar. Now, we'll really appreciate you as participants. We know your time is valuable, and we don't take it for granted that you elected to spend the time with us for the last 2 or so hours. Now, we trust that the webinar has been helpful to you, that the knowledge that our colleagues have shared has given you practical takeaways that you can apply in your work, in your studies, and in terms of working with the communities where you live and where you work. Now, we are open to collaborations, as we have seen some people inquiring in the chat. Our teams will follow up with any other engagements that you have sought through what you wrote in the chat. If you need any other collaboration, any other contact with us, please feel free to reach out to us through our socials and as well as our email. And you can find us on www.midrifturinet.org. We are open to further collaboration with you. So once you reach out to us, just keep an eye on your inbox and we will reach out in terms of any other engagement. So once again, heartfelt thank you to everybody who has participated in this webinar. We will, in case of a future one, we will reach out to you again and welcome you to that. So thank you very much. On behalf of the organization, I wish you a good afternoon. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Leonard. We can now feel free to leave the meeting at our pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Good day. Have a wonderful day.